All righty. So we are gonna start all over again with ICD-10. Um, does everybody, let me ask you this, the ICD-10-CM, does everybody have the 2024 still, or if I use 2025, does anybody even have it?
I have 2025.
Okay. Okay. So Janine, do you have 2024 or 25? I think.
I have 2024.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and use 2024, just because we've got two people that have the 2024. Michelle, so do you have 2024 or do you only have 2025?
I only have 2025. I'm brand spanking new.
Okay, no, that's totally fine. So have you started, like, where are you in your studies? Like, are you like, you haven't even
I'm
gotten to this point in your course?
I'm on chapter 10. With the
Okay.
AAPC, yeah.
Okay, so you're close. Okay, yeah. So you've already gone through ICD-10. Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So the codes will probably not change for these questions from 2024 to 2025. But if you do need like a page number, let me know, and just remind me that you have the 2025, and I'll get you a page number in the 2025. Okay. So like I said, from a like a just a code and like index standpoint, everything else should match. It's just like I said, if you need the page number type thing.
Okay.
Okay. So let's just start out with number one. So, and I know Michelle, so you're probably, have you joined any study groups yet? I don't recognize the name, but
Have I joined any what?
any of our study groups yet? Is this your first time?
This is my first.
Okay. Okay.
I'm
So
thrilled. I need
yeah,
all the help
yeah.
I can get.
So what we'll do, and I know kind of last year we kind of focused a little bit on both, but like while we're doing ICD-10, I really want to focus on kind of like coding from scratch. So even though we have multiple choices here, don't just go and just jump straight to it because I want to make sure everybody's comfortable with the index, and that way we know how to look up codes, because it potentially could speed you up, if you are trying to, kind of determine whether or not like you're down to two codes type thing. So let's just make sure that's what I want to kind of focus on tonight, is making sure that we get comfortable with the index, the alphabetic index, and just kind of um, um, make sure that we know how to use it type thing. So number one, what ICD-10-CM code is reported for pneumonia due to adenovirus? So what is our main term that we want to look up in our alphabetic index?
Pneumonia.
Yep. Yep. Because it's going to be the condition and not necessarily the cause, or anything like that. So yep, we want to look up pneumonia. And then it's actually in two different spots within the index underneath pneumonia. You can either go to adenoviral, or you can go to N or due to, and then there's an adenovirus underneath that. So what code are we going to use for this one?
B.
J12.
Yep. Yep. J12.0 letter. Okay. Any questions on that? All right. Number two, what is your ICD-10-CM code for a patient with post-op anemia due to acute blood loss during this surgery who needs a transfusion? So what's our main term? What's our condition?
Anemia.
Yep. Anemia. Underneath anemia, where do you think we'll go?
Due to,
Let's look and see if it's under there.
oh, wait, no, no. How about
No,
post
you're fine.
office?
Yep. Post-op is where I would go.
Okay,
Yep. And then we would do the due to the acute blood loss underneath that. So what code should we use for the anemia post-op due to acute blood loss during the surgery?
B,
B.
B, yep, D62. Okay, any questions on that one? All right, so I'm throwing in a guideline question here, okay? So if we have it documented that the patient is both using tobacco and they have a dependence on tobacco, how would we report this according to our guidelines?
dependence.
Yeah, so we are only going to report the dependence. Yeah, so remember we have that hierarchy. And if you don't remember, you can always go to your guideline. But you've got that hierarchy for substance, psychoactive substance use, abuse, and dependence. And so your highest is your dependent, then you've got abuse, and then use. So if you have use and abuse, we're just going to do abuse. If you have abuse and dependence, we're going to use dependence. We have use and dependence, we're just going to use dependence. Yep. Okay. All right. Number 4 is a little bit more tricky. We have a patient is admitted to the hospital with streptococcal group B severe sepsis, and that has caused pneumonia and acute renal failure. So what's the first one we want to look up? There's a couple different ones here. What's the first thing you guys want to look up?
Sepsis?
The severe sepsis? Yep. Okay. All right, so let's go to sepsis. Okay. And then underneath sepsis, we'll go to severe. And what's our code for the severe sepsis?
R6520.
Okay. Yep. R65. Now, from a testing perspective, we already know our answer, right? Because there's only one that has R6520. Like I said, let's continue to go through them so that we can just get comfortable with the index. And that way, if you have already passed, then you are not, we know we're not going to have multiple choice in the real world. So let's just keep going and picking more out. Okay. So what else do we want to code?
The streptococcal group B.
Yep. So what are we going to look up for the streptococcal group B?
Do you look up pneumonia caused by that?
Well, so eventually, yes, we will get to that point. However, we want to make sure that we are recognizing, because severe sepsis cannot be an only code, right? So we have to have something else with it. So we need to know the causal agent. So we're going to go to sepsis again, and then go to streptococcus, and then group B. So really the streptococcal group B and then our sepsis is going to be kind of like a diagnosis. And then the severe sepsis is going to be an additional diagnosis. Does that make sense? Sepsis is very involved when we go to code. So yeah, there it says A40.1. So again, you'll go sepsis and then streptococcal or streptococcus. And then you'll go to group B, and that gives you A40.1. Okay. And then, so let's look at our guidelines. So if you want to flip to the guidelines for chapter 1, which is where your sepsis guidelines are. So it is chapter 1, letter D. And then you have letter D, number 1, letter A. No, sorry, letter B. So chapter 1, D, 1A, B. No, sorry. I keep saying A and it's not A. It is 1D, 1B. So severe sepsis. Does everybody see that? So this is telling us that coding of severe sepsis requires a minimum of 2 codes. First, you have to have the code for the underlying systemic infection, which is our streptococcal group B. Then it's going to be followed by a category or a code from subcategory R65.20 or R65.2, and we're using R65.20 for the severe sepsis. And then additional codes for the associated acute organ dysfunction are also required. So our organ dysfunction at this point is going to be pneumonia and the acute renal failure. Does that make sense? So that's kind of our sequencing for these. So technically in the real world, I probably would sequence this R65.20 in front of the J15.3. But if you see it like this on the exam, then we know that this has the correct codes. Okay, so sequencing, if this is your only one, don't nitpick it too much. But in the real world, according to your guidelines, then your first code should be the underlying systemic infection, then the R65.20, and then our acute organ dysfunctions. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. When you have severe sepsis, you're always going to look at this, the organism under sepsis again, then?
Yep.
Sort of?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry, I just took a drink and it went down the wrong pipe. You do have in your guidelines for sepsis or that severe sepsis, it says if the causal organism is not documented. So if for some reason they just tell us that it is severe sepsis and they're not telling us the causal organism, so there's basically severe sepsis unspecified, then we would use the A41.9. But yeah, so yeah. So if they don't give it to us, we've got kind of like an unspecified code. If they do give it to us, we would go underneath sepsis and then find whatever that causal organism is. Yep. Okay. So let's look at the pneumonia now. So let's just go to pneumonia. And then with pneumonia, do we have the causal organism of the pneumonia?
No.
Are you sure? I know it's kind of a trick question because they're not telling us specifically, but if the pneumonia is due to the severe sepsis that is due to streptococcal group B, A equals B equals C, therefore A equals C, right? I know I'm throwing in algebra, so sorry if I like totally threw you guys off on that. So if we know that the sepsis is caused by something, and then we know that something is caused by the sepsis, we can assume that the causal organism for the sepsis has also caused the pneumonia. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So underneath pneumonia, we'll want to go to streptococcal. And then again, we know group B. So what's our code for the group B streptococcal pneumonia?
J15.3.
Perfect. Yeah. You're J15.3. Okay. And then lastly, we need the acute renal failure. So what's our main term for the acute renal failure?
Failure.
Yep, failure. And then we'll do failure. The type of failure is the renal. And then acute. And this one doesn't have any specifications as far as the causal agent. So what is our code for the acute renal failure?
N17.9.
Yep, N17.9. So again, from a testing perspective, right, we've got the severe sepsis code. We only have one option that has severe sepsis. So we knew what our answer was at the first code. So really a question that's this long typically won't take you a super long time if you know how to do your process of elimination efficiently. And so that's just kind of like from a test taking standpoint where they're not as intimidating, or at least I try to help them not be as intimidating type thing. Okay, any questions on that one? And as always, anytime, and I even still do it, and I've been doing this for forever just because sepsis is such an involved condition. Anytime I have a scenario that has sepsis, then I always just go to my guidelines and just make sure I know my sequencing. So don't ever hesitate to just go glance at them, especially if it's a very convoluted topic like sepsis, where you have a lot of moving parts and sequencing can kind of make or break things. Okay. Number 5, we have a 23-year-old patient presents to the emergency department with a cut on his leg. He is a confirmed AIDS patient as documented within the record. So from this standpoint, we know that if he is a confirmed AIDS patient, do we know what our code is for confirmed AIDS versus HIV positive? If not, we can look it up.
B20.
Yep, B20. Okay. So also, again, from a test taking standpoint, we know our answer, right? Let me ask you this. Even though we have a guideline that tells us that B20 should always be listed first and take sequencing priority, why is it listed second in this scenario? Any guesses?
Because he's in the ER with the laceration or with the cut on his leg, and it's not an AIDS-related illness.
Exactly. Yep. Because it is an unrelated condition to the AIDS. Now, had he been in there with an asthma attack, then we would still have the AIDS listed first, right? But the laceration on the leg was not caused due to the presence of AIDS, right? So that's if they are being seen for a condition that is completely unrelated to the AIDS, then the condition that they're being treated for is going to be your first listed. And then your AIDS is going to be second listed. Yep. Okay. So let's do alphabetic index wise. We know what our code is, right? And we know what our answer is. But from an index standpoint, the cut on the leg, what's going to be our main term that we're going to look at in the alphabetic index?
Laceration.
Yep. Yep. We'll go to laceration. Okay. And then where is the laceration on the body?
On the leg.
Yep, on the leg. Mm-hmm. And then since we don't know laterality, right, because they just tell us it's a cut on his leg. In the real world, we would want to go back and query the provider and say, okay, we know if you did the left or the right. But in this scenario, they don't give us the detail. So we're just going to stop at the default code since we don't have laterality information. So we're going to do the S81.819. Once we go back in the tabular, we'll have to just get our seventh character, which in this case is A. Now, let me ask you guys this, since we're talking about seventh characters and A's. If the patient, let's say that he came back for a follow-up for, well, not necessarily to the ED, but let's say that they went to their primary care provider and just did a follow-up, and they are either having the stitches removed or it's being evaluated or whatever. Are we still going to have seventh character A since it is a second visit for the laceration?
No.
Okay. Real quick, let's flip to our guidelines because trust me, this is the reason that I bring it up, because I want to make sure that everybody is familiar with those seven characters. So if you flip to your guidelines in chapter 20, what chapter is it? Not 20.
19.
Chapter 19. Sorry, my brain today. So yeah, chapter 19. Okay. Your letter A, the very first section underneath chapter 19, you have, it's after the first two full paragraphs, you have a seventh character A sentence. And it says, so your seventh character A initial encounter is used for each encounter where the patient is receiving active treatment. So A, even though it's an initial encounter, it does not mean the first encounter. It just means active treatment. So the easiest way to remember that is A equals active. So they can have 7 subsequent encounters that aren't true subsequent encounters. They can have follow-up visits, and if they're being treated for it and they are actively having treatment for the condition, then you're going to use the letter A. Okay. Your subsequent encounter, or letter D, that is going to be when they have completed active treatment and they are in the healing phase or the recovery phase. And then your D is going to be, your S is going to be for your sequela. And that's where it's going to be like a late effect or something that is present as the result of whatever the condition is that has healed. So an example of your subsequent is going to be when you have burns. After that burn has healed, then at that point you have scar formation on top of where the burn is, on where the burn was. That makes sense. So A is active treatment. D is going to be in a healing phase. And then S is going to be for sequelas, late effects, things that are present as a result of the healed condition. Okay, any questions on those? I know we're not technically talking about chapter 19 for these questions, but since that code came up, I wanted to at least touch on it. Okay. Number 6, let's move on. We have a 50-year-old patient has a mass removed from his chest. The surgeon sends it to pathology, and the pathology report indicates that it is a benign tumor. So where should we look up for this?
Mass?
Okay. So if we didn't have the behavior, then yes, I would say go to mass. However, since we have the behavior and we know it's benign, then we can go ahead and go directly to the table of neoplasms. Does that make sense? Okay. So the table of neoplasms, it is organized by anatomic location. So what anatomic location is your benign tumor coming from?
Chest.
Yep, the chest. And then our behavior is benign. So what code are we going to choose for this one?
B.
B is in boy or D is in dog?
B is in boy.
B is in boy. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was hearing that right. Yep. D 36.7. Okay. Does everybody agree? D 36.7. Any questions on that one? Okay. Number 7, 32-year-old patient with hyperthyroidism has an ultrasound to determine why her neck is enlarged. The results of the ultrasound reveal a uninodular goiter. So what's our main term for this one?
Goiter.
Yep, goiter. Okay. Underneath goiter, where should we go?
Uninodular.
Okay. Yep. We'll go down to uninodular. And then we're going to go to toxic or with hyperthyroidism. And what code does that give us? E05.10. Everybody agree with that? Any questions? Number 8, we have a lab screening shows congenital iodine deficiency hypothyroidism for an infant with identified intellectual disabilities. What do you guys want to look up first?
Hypothyroidism.
Okay, the hypothyroidism, the congenital iodine deficiency, hypothyroidism. Okay. Let's go to hypo, not hyper, because I remember the previous one was hyper, because I almost went hyper on this one. Hypothyroidism. Okay. And then where do you want to go from there?
Congenital.
Okay. Normally, I
Me
would tell you
too.
where you want to go, but I would go to iodine deficiency first.
Oh, wait, it says due to. Okay, yes, I see
Nope,
that.
nope, skip
Oh,
due to. Nope,
oh,
skip
okay,
due to.
okay,
Go down to iodine deficiency.
okay. I see that. Yep, and congenital
And then you've got a congenital under there and it sends you somewhere else.
to syndrome, iodine deficiency.
Congenital. Yep. So we'll
Okay,
go main term syndrome
okay, gotcha.
and then iodine deficiency congenital. Okay. And then what code do we have once you guys get through that?
E is that 0.9?
Mm-hmm. Yep. E00.9. Okay.
Tiffany,
Yes, ma'am.
do you suggest writing that E00.9 in the original spot we were looking at? So we don't have to keep flipping pages?
It's up to you if you want to. I mean, I typically don't just because I don't, it's, if you feel like that will help speed you up, then I mean, yeah, absolutely you can.
Okay. I think I'll do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So the main question now is, do we code the intellectual disability? Is that relevant to the case? Is that something that you feel like we should report today?
Hmm.
Any thought? Do we feel like an intellectual disability is something that's going to resolve?
No.
Right. So if they have an intellectual disability that is diagnosed, basically that diagnosis is going to stick with them for life.
So no need to code that, correct, Tiffany?
Now we do need to code.
We do.
Yeah,
Okay.
we do need to code it because if it's
Okay.
there and once it's there for life, then
Okay.
we should append it
To
to
the
our scenarios. Yep.
scenario. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. To our chart. Absolutely.
So it'll be the F79. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. So when we're looking it up in the alphabetic index, what's our main term that we're going to go to?
Disability.
Yep, disability. So then underneath disability, we'll go to intellectual. In this scenario, they're not giving us additional information about if there's autistic features, if it's genetic related, all of those things. So again, we'll just stop at that default code, and that's our F79.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So they might give you scenarios on your exam where you just have to decide, are we going to choose or are we going to code that code as well? So just kind of remember that if it's something that is there and it's always going to be there and it's never going to resolve type thing, and we have the support for it, then we can. Okay. Number 9. We have a 32-year-old male was seen in the ambulatory surgical center for removal of 2 lipomas. One was located on his back, and then the other was located on the right forearm. Both of those involved subcutaneous tissue. So what are we going to look up? What's our condition, our main term?
Lipoma.
Yep, lipoma. Okay, and then we had 2 separate lipomas. One is on the back, and then one is on the right forearm. So the one on the back, what entry would we use for the one on the back?
Trunk?
The trunk. Yep. Yep. So what's our code for the back?
D17-1.
Yep, D17.1.
17.1.
Mm-hmm. And then what's our code for the right forearm? We've got D17.2, and then we've got to go to the back and expand it and all of that. Yep.
So it'll be D17.23.
Yep.
2-1.
Hang
No,
on.
right?
Nope, hang on, that's leg. I know, I had to look at that too. So the forearm is
2-1.
21. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, D17.21. And I'll be totally honest, I don't know why in one of them they have the D17.1 first and the D17.1 second and the other. They're coming in for the same or for both conditions. So there's not a this is the reason for the encounter and then the whatever else. So it could be sequenced either way. So they're never going to give you an option that looks like this. They're never going to give you 2 options that are the exact same codes. In a scenario where sequencing does not matter. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay. Any questions on that one? All right. And let's look at our last one. Number 10, we have a male patient is seen by his primary care provider for rectal bleeding and persistent intestinal cramps. After a colonoscopy with a biopsy, the result came back and the provider documents that the patient has a malignant neoplasm in his sigmoid colon. So what all are we going to code out of this?
The cancer?
the malignant neoplasm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Are we going to code anything else?
No, because those
No.
are all symptoms of it.
Because what was that? I think it was Sarah that said that.
Because it was already diagnosed. It was diagnosed as that for the biopsy. Mhm.
They're symptoms of the diagnosis.
Yes. Yep. There's symptoms of the diagnosis. Yep. So if we were to code the rectal bleeding and the persistent intestinal cramps, then those are symptoms, signs or symptoms of a definitive diagnosis. So if we have a definitive diagnosis, we should only code that diagnosis and not any associated signs or symptoms with it.
Okay.
Yep. So from a testing standpoint, we know we're not going to do C or D right off the bat, right? Because we know we're not going to code our signs and symptoms. So let's go to our table of neoplasms and let's find the malignant neoplasm of the sigmoid colon. So where do we want to go anatomic location?
Intestine.
You want, yep, intestine. Okay. Yep, we can jump directly to there.
Then go to rectum.
There's not mention of the rectum.
Oh, it just says rectum bleeding. Okay, gotcha. Mm-hmm. Okay, so intestines, and then we just go to malignant then. Correct?
Well, no, we'll do intestine, and then we have that it's this sigmoid colon. So we'll do intestine, large, colon, sigmoid. Okay, and where do you think, what's our code for the sigmoid colon?
E18.7.
Yep, C18.7.
See, now I went right to sigmoid instead of intestine, and it's the same
Oh,
code.
okay. Yeah. And that's the thing, that's the beauty of the alphabetic index is there's multiple ways. Sometimes, yeah, let me look and see. I'm not that I don't believe you, but I don't know that I've ever jumped straight to sigmoid. So I don't know that I ever knew that that was an option to just jump straight to sigmoid. Yeah. Yeah. So you're good. Yeah. That's why we just always want to make sure and I know we didn't do it a whole lot tonight, and I didn't like reiterate it, but so you just always want to make sure that you just verify your code. And that in the tabular back in the back is just make sure that it all matches because there's multiple ways to finding things in the index. Especially like the ICD-10, yes, for sure. CPT, there's a ton of different ways to find things in the index. So we just always want to make sure that we verify our code. And so as long as the code description itself matches, it doesn't really matter if we, took the highway or we took the scenic route, right? As long as we all end up in the same place at the end of the day, then that's the bottom line type thing. So that's just kind of I've been doing this for so long that I get comfortable enough with my way to do it. And then there are people that have, fresh eyes to it and they're like, well, why can't we go this way? I mean, you can. My brain just never thought to go there type thing. So, okay. Any questions? Anything you guys want to chat about for the last couple of minutes? Okay. No, go ahead.
Do you ever use the online bookshelf?
Like the Vital Source bookshelf.
Yeah.
I do not have ebook, just because my job gives us an encoder, so they don't really give us ebooks, and then I get the hard copies of the books just because obviously, like I'm doing coaching and instruction and things like that. I've seen the ebooks, but I'm not comfortable enough in them. If you had a question, that I might be able to guide you, type thing.
Okay. I find it difficult compared to the book because like the search doesn't give you like 100% search. So if you
No, it
want
doesn't. Yeah.
just the name, want just to look up abdomen, it doesn't take you to abdomen. It takes you to, gives you 100 different choices. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And like I said, I have kind of like seen it and I've played around with it, and I was not a big enough fan of it to make the switch, type thing, and just kind of do that instead of having the hard books. Just because,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like you said, the search function isn't the best. So I mean, to each their own. I know that there has been talks about ebooks being worked into the exam if you want to use ebooks on the exam. But I know me, I'm more comfortable with my books than the ebooks. And so therefore the ebooks are going to slow me down. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It just takes you not to the right place.
yeah. Yeah. Or it might, you just have to sift through a bunch of different where it just says abdomen like randomly in the code description, and it's not even really what you're looking for.
Right.
You might have more that you have to sift through. Not necessarily finding a needle in a haystack, but you might be finding like, something else that's very similar in a smaller haystack type thing.
Right.
It might filter them out a little bit, but you still have quite a bit of results to kind of weed through. So yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure it wasn't knowing me.
No.
I just didn't understand how the book was working.
Yeah, no, at least I have not. Like I said, it's been a while since I've kind of looked into it. But like a couple of years ago, I had the same kind of experience, and that's why I never really made that leap into it. So don't feel bad.
Well, I have
Don't feel bad at all.
RA and carpal tunnel, so the book is like really
So
hard
it
for
would
me.
be
So I
nice
thought,
if it functioned. Yeah, so that
Yeah.
way you didn't have to flip and you didn't have to. Yeah, no, I get that.
but
I get
yeah,
that completely. Yeah.
I think I like the book.
Yeah, I know. I'm such an old soul too, that I like my hard copies of the books. I've been doing it for so long before ebooks was even an option. And so I didn't know if that was just me like being that old grumpy soul of I like my books and you can't convince me otherwise type thing. So
Yeah. And
okay.
notes too. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. You can't put the same amount of notes and the type of notes and things in an ebook either. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, that was a good conversation because I haven't really had conversations about ebooks besides, are they going to be on the exam? Type thing. I know
Yeah.
we have like gotten somewhat of a confirmation that is coming, as far as the ebooks are going to be available on the exam. However, and I will, since we've got a couple minutes, I can kind of talk about it a little bit for if people are going to listen to the recording. But um, ebooks, if they do or when they do allow the ebooks on the exam, it is not going to be your copy of the ebook. So any notes that you save in your version of the ebook, those are not going to be available on the exam. It's going to be a blank copy of the ebook, and it's going to be like you just walked into the exam with a fresh book and you've never, kind of made notes or prepped or anything like that. So
Would that be an option though, Tiffany, for the ebooks, or
it will be. They have not released when.
they will be an
But
option if you want to
AAPC
use it or not?
Alex, yeah,
Okay.
AAPC Alex did post in one of the groups, and he did confirm that option is coming. He did not say when,
Okay.
but he did say soon. So as soon as I find out dates and things, then I'll let you guys know. But like I said, it's not going to be a you have to use it, but that option is going to be there if you want it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Having taken the test, I used my notes that were in there.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I have taken 7 and I'm working on my 8th, and I would not be able to do it without my notes.
No.
So yeah. It's just I need that visual of like the codes grouped together, and then like the visual of the differences between the codes, so I can sift through them easier. I can sift through them faster, and that's just the way that my brain processes the information. So, and some people can do it without it, but I think that's just my ADD. And I think that's like it's so easy. If I look at a fresh book that has no notes, like my eyes jot all over the page. Whereas if I have them kind of grouped together and I have them highlighted and underlined and things like that, I can focus a little bit better. So yeah, and everybody's going to be different. There's going to be some people that can do it, and I commend them. I'm kind of jealous that their brain doesn't go in 800 places at once. But yeah, everybody's going to do, what works best for them. So. All right, ladies, anything else you guys want to chat about? I'm glad that we had, I know there were only a couple in the very beginning, but I'm glad we had a couple more join as we kind of went through. And my hope is we will not get enough snow to completely shut me down for next week. So the plan is to just meet on Wednesdays, but obviously if there's anything that pops up that keeps me from being able to do it, then I'll just kind of put it out there like I do either on Facebook or TikTok or, all of the things as far as if we're not. So if you don't hear anything, that means we're good every Wednesday from here on. Okay. All right. Well, you all have a good rest of what is today? Wednesday evening. And if you need anything at all, don't hesitate to reach out over the next week. Okay.
Thank you, Tiffany.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.